Hey everybody, so something we're going to look at today is how to find eggs in a hive. It's a really common question for all beekeepers, not just new beekeepers, but it's a common question for any beekeeper. How do you find eggs? Eggs are super hard to find. I mean, eggs are smaller than a grain of rice, and they're buried down in the bottom of this dark little cell in dark honeycomb, and it's just really tough to see them. Before I get into some tips and tricks on how to find eggs, I want to go over really quickly the fact that you don't always have to find eggs in a hive. It's a helpful tool to have, but it's not necessary to find eggs every time you look in your hive. If you have a hive that is healthy, it's growing, you see capped brood, you see larvae, you do not see queen cells all over the place, there's no reason to find eggs. You've got a laying queen 95% of the time. On the other hand, if you've got a hive that you don't see capped brood, you don't see larvae, maybe you see queen cells all over the place, okay, they might be queenless and you need to find eggs. But 9 times out of 10, all you need to do is see capped brood, a good bee population, and do not see queen cells, and you probably do not have to find eggs. Even if you've got a brand new nook or a brand new hive home, you don't have to feel pressure to find the queen and find eggs. All you need to do is see capped brood, you see larvae, you don't see queen cells, and you're probably just fine. So don't stress too much trying to find eggs. Just learn to identify capped brood, learn to identify larvae, and you're probably good to go. But if you do want to find eggs, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to do that. So some tools that are really helpful, and I'll show you how to use them. A flashlight, so bring a flashlight out to the bee yard. I know it's super bright out here, but a flashlight is still super helpful. And then your smartphone. So bring your flashlight and bring your smartphone. And these are two really helpful tools to finding eggs. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But you're gonna open up your hive. Now, eggs are usually gonna be mostly on frames that do not have a tremendous amount of capped brood, because there's got to be open cells for the queen to lay in. So we want to find frames that are usually on the outskirts of the brood nest that are not completely full of capped brood, because if they're completely full of capped brood, there's nowhere for that queen to lay. So this frame is a picture perfect example. So we've got a bunch of capped brood around the edge, as you can see around the edge. So there's capped honey up here. We've got a ring of capped brood right here. And then the whole center of this frame is apparently empty. At a glance, you might say, well, that frame doesn't have any brood on it. When in fact, it's completely full of eggs and larvae in those cells that look empty. It's just tough to tell because it's hard to see down in those cells. So if I see a ring of capped brood around the edge of a frame like this, 99% of the time, the inside of all those cells is full of eggs and larvae. So this is actually a complete frame of brood, but you wouldn't know it if you couldn't see down into those cells and see those eggs or those teeny tiny little larvae. So the number one thing when you're trying to find eggs is adjust these frames so the sunlight is shining directly down into those cells. So wherever the sun is, adjust this frame so that you can see the sunlight is shining directly down into those cells, and that's really going to help you see eggs. Once that sunlight is suddenly glinting off the bottom of those cells, it is way easier to see eggs and larvae. If it's not a bright sunny day, that's where your flashlight comes in. So get your flashlight, turn it on, especially if it's a cloudy day, and just shine your flashlight down into those cells so that you can see eggs and larvae. That flashlight is super helpful. Just shine it into those cells. The other thing you can do is get your smartphone and take a bunch of pictures at varying heights above those cells, and then maybe take some videos at varying heights above those cells. And then you can go inside where it's darker and you can zoom up on those pictures with your smartphone, zoom up on them or zoom up on the video and see if you see eggs and larvae. But you can do this on 3 or 4 of the frames in the center area of the brood box, and look for those eggs, look for those larvae, and that'll help tremendously. 9 times out of 10, you're going to see eggs in this center area of the brood box. So that's where you need to focus most of your time and attention, rather than the extreme outside edges or frames that are completely full of cat brood or completely full of honey. But that's it. I mean, use your flashlight, use your smartphone, let the sunlight shine directly in the bottom of those cells. And remember, if you have cat brood, you do not see queen cells all over the place, you're probably fine. Another thing you can do, if you don't see eggs and you don't see larvae and you don't see cat brood, wait a few days and go back and look again. You could have a new queen that is just starting to lay eggs, and it takes, 5 days after they hatch from an egg to be capped over. And so you might just need to give them 4 or 5 more days and go back, and then you'll start seeing that cat brood. So those are my best tips on finding eggs and larvae. If all else fails, then take a bunch of pictures and send them to your mentor, or send them to us at Texas Bee Supply, and we'd be more than happy to look at those frames and those pictures and say, yep, we do see eggs and larvae, we do see brood, or no, this hive is queenless.